I'm Sivan Gerard, the General Secretary for WADEM Europe Chapter. And well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, even good night, because I found out we have a tremendous amount of time zones involved in the webinar. So welcome to our World Association for Disaster and Emergency Medicine European Chapter webinar, Civilian Military Medical Interoperability in the New Paradigm of War and Conflict. We are in a transformative era where global conflicts reshape casualty landscapes, fundamentally altering medical needs and blurring the boundaries between civilian and medical operations. Many of these capabilities and agreements are confronted with new political and narrative hurdles, given the emerging global political currents. We will, however, leave politics aside, as we do so well as health professionals, to focus on the measures we develop and implement to improve global health outcomes. The challenges before us are immense and urgent, requiring innovative approaches to strengthen interoperability and reduce morbidity and mortality in conflict zones and large-scale combat operations, as well as their subsequent disastrous public health ramifications. Today, we're joined by a panel of esteemed experts who will address critical themes from hyper-realistic disaster medicine training to adapting medical education in wartime and best practices in pre-hospital care for both military and civilian responders. Each of our speakers has deep insights from their unique fields, and we are grateful for their participation with us today. Of course, special thanks to our hosting organization, the World Association for Disaster and Emergency Medicine, for providing a platform for these essential discussions. So please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Dr. John Quinn, an expert in pre-hospital medical interoperability and logistics, with experience in the Ukraine conflict and with a variety of other expertise he will be sharing with you. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Sivan, for the intro, and thank you to the organizers for the opportunity to share these experiences. What I'd like to do is run through quickly, in about 8 to 9 minutes, some of these concepts to leave it some time for Q&A, and most importantly, any of you that may have additional questions, I'm happy to chat offline as well as within the Q&A feature here in this webinar. So I do have some disclaimers. I've had a lot of help to be able to bring you these observations and experiences. I definitely want to thank WADEM for the venue, as well as some of the other partners you can see listed below here that have helped me run around the battlefield and be able to provide some support, as well as get assessment materials for what's actually taking place in Ukraine. A little bit more of shout outs you can see here. These are all of some of the organizations that we've been in some sort of affiliation or cooperation with, and some that have provided direct support to bring you some of this information and bring you some of this qualitative analysis. I want to sit here for a minute or two and really unpack some of the details. These are the core assumptions of where we're sitting right now. This is going to be the framework to really hopefully set the scene for the next few moments. Really, Ukraine has eclipsed the NATO and the NATO partner counterinsurgency experience. And so when it comes to disaster medicine and interoperability, we have a lot of lessons to learn. We have a lot of lessons that we have learned. However, Ukraine has eclipsed this. It has moved past this. Its experience is the only European, non-European Union, but it's the only European country actually facing large-scale combat operations on its own soil in over 7 decades. And this is significant. We really have to understand this and learn from the Ukrainian experience and really listen to our Ukrainian partners. Also, there's a concept within disaster medicine as it relates to how you can really provide support. Is it from a grassroots level, ground up versus top down, meaning going to senior decision makers? As it relates to medical command and control, and really as it relates to support and enhancement and assistance, these are really challenged in the Ukrainian experience. And we have to learn from this and understand how can we prepare and how can we provide resilience in our own systems. Additionally, the lessons that are not shared from the Ukrainian experience and from any disaster response experience will be lost if they are not shared, and they will not be entirely forgotten until everyone drops away, goes away into other areas and says, we're not going to share these experiences, and then those are lost forever, and it'll take another set of experience to be able to bring that back. It's very challenging. Additionally, with large-scale combat operations, there is a significant threat, and it really, really poses significant challenges as it relates to preventing morbidity, mortality for medical planning. So whether you're a civilian hospital in the middle of Louisiana, whether you're a military hospital in Moldova, these are significantly challenged concepts about medical planning. I do want to say, you know, the concept within military medicine is that good medicine equals forced lethality. And what that translates into at the military-civilian interface is that good medicine, good health practice equals good response, equals good end user experience, equals medical outcomes. And I really just, these are the core assumptions that we have to really pull in to set the scene. I'm going to kind of zip through a lot of these. Again, I'm happy to have a lot of Q&A, and I encourage our organizers to let me know on time because I can't see the actual time. As it relates to an overview, this is really an update. I've been in Ukraine since 2014 on and off. 2022 was a very challenging time, and 2023 was a very challenging time. And this is really just a focus on 2024, the experience. As we wrap up the year, we're really trying to learn these lessons and share, most importantly, share these observations and share these lessons. Try to highlight some of the challenges and sort of walk through some aspects so we can reduce duplication, which within disaster health and disaster medicine, that's a key feature. And then really clinically jumping into the damage control resuscitation core concepts and some training. So again, this is a screen capture from ISR. I'm sorry, ISW, and this is from 2024, 2023 to 2024. This is really just these very specific captured pieces of anecdotal data. And the reason I show you that is because Ukraine is not a homogeneous pre-hospital and disaster medicine zone. It is not. It is entirely different across the entire line. You can have 1,000 kilometers of a forward line of troops. You can have 2,300 kilometers of some sort of contested area. And so this opens up an entirely different set of problems between North and South, between East and West, as well as a different set of some of the success stories that have happened across the entire line, because it is so massive and you have a lot of disparate units and disaster response. It is not homogeneous. I think it's very important to remember that. Additionally, lexicon mapping within the Ukrainian paradigm is very challenging. You're going to hear a lot of great speakers discuss a lot of different things, and some may come from a very specific European Union standard lexicon. Some may come from a very NATO, very military-driven lexicon, and some may actually come from where they're doing it, which is a Ukrainian centered area where they're kind of mixing a lot of these concepts, a lot of these paradigms of what actually takes place at different levels and echelons of care. It is really being challenged, and the Ukrainians are actually having some very interesting, novel approaches, and we must learn from them so that we better understand our own systems and we can adjust systems to be able to support with interoperability with NATO and NATO partners such as Ukraine. So some of the first aid stations, some of the casualty collection points you may see in Ukraine at the line are indeed this. Strict light discipline. You may be in a basement. You may be in a donated home. You may have to take out the wall or the window to be able to receive patients. You may be in an area like this, which is, you know, decent clinic. It used to be a GP practice. However, and it looks great. However, this this is also because of the nature of being a target. A lot of these facilities are directly targeted by enemy attacks, and they may be entirely obliterated, and not only killing everyone involved, including the patients, but also taking away that medical resource. If you look on the left, you can see the back of this truck for the purposes of picking up patients at point of injury and peri-point of injury, where they may be able to self-extricate to, and being able to provide blood. And this is really what the whole concept and the whole nexus of damage control resuscitation revolves around, is having access to blood as close to point of injury as possible. You may also be in a big fancy roll 1 plus, roll 2 minus environment where you may be able to do some elements of blood transfusion, as well as intubation, as well as damage control surgery. And you may also be in a big fancy area that has significant access to diagnostics, technology. This is not a hospital. This is inside what is a makeshift clinic hospital to a roll 1 plus, or roll 2 minus, being able to provide damage control surgery very close to the line, very close to where patients are injured. However, this requires a significant amount of logistical support. As it relates to blood, you can see some blood packs on the left put together by one of the partners there to be able to transfuse blood quickly. Obviously, you can't give blood ice cold. It has to be warm, so you can see some of these amazing devices delivered by some of the partners, as well as some of the refrigeration units that are required to be able to keep blood in the cold chain management to safely transfuse. Can you give blood at point of injury? Absolutely. It's very challenging. It's logistically very challenging, but you can see here a refrigerator, indeed, at very far forward locations, being able to provide blood in the far forward space. You also need to be able to produce blood. How do you produce blood? Universal donor blood, low titer or whole blood. This is a challenge. This is not easy. This is not easy for Germany. This is not easy for the United States. This is a challenge. You need power to do it. So you can see here at a blood bank, one of these new systems here. You can see here the being able to provide blood, blood refrigeration on the left with a huge battery pack, as well as a huge battery pack providing blood to the entire blood transfusion center, where they can actually receive the blood and get it out of patients to be able to produce, for the entire center. And then you can see on the right here, obviously, in far forward locations. I do want to talk a little bit about training. It's very important that everyone uses the deployed medicine resources that they have available, not only in English, but also in Ukrainian. Why is that important? Well, because it provides best practices, and it provides best practices in the language of our partners. And it's also very important to say that when you do the training, you can use these free resources for the purposes of being able to provide it to a much larger audience and be able to say, listen, this is the theory, this is the practical, this is how it goes together. And you can reference it and put it forward. However, these joint trauma system clinical practice guidelines that are posted on deployed medicine are only as good as the data that are input. And this is why the lessons learned must become lessons shared, so that that data set can actually increase the entire clinical practice guideline process. A few more photos here about some training. I think it's very interesting to learn a little bit more about some of the rate limiting steps for damage control surgery within Ukraine. Being able to have, you can't really see a good picture here of this MOVES SLC unit, but there is indirect hemoglobin measurement that can be provided by this. We don't have enough of this. We don't have enough hemoglobin, indirect hemoglobin measurements in country, and it's very challenging. However, it's very helpful clinical information for the purposes of clinical decision making. Transfusion in Ukraine has been challenged from the start. It is right now 100% legal. I think our colleagues, most importantly, our colleagues on the call from the All Ukrainian Resuscitation Council, as well as from Tactical Medicine North, as well as the Ukrainian Transplantation Coordination Center, as well as some of the other partners you can see here, including Pulse and others, have done an amazing job at being able to make this absolutely legal. Clinical governance, it is 100% legal for a very low-level junior provider to be able to give universal donor blood to patients that require it. And this is a very big challenge. It's still in process. To be able to get low titer whole blood is still a challenge. However, it is something that I think these wins need to be captured. They need to be made good upon. But how do you plus that up? Well, you need to have more blood warmers. You can see here some of the excellent partners that have been providing for free to several people and several units the ability to provide far forward blood transfusion. There's a significant need for blood warmers. There's a significant need for refrigeration units, and I can go into a lot more detail of that, but the standard is there. The standard is well rooted in evidence-based medicine. You can see here another photo of some of the blood units going out, so that all it is basically just add blood and a blood warmer. There's a few academic papers that have been published about this. I encourage some of you to take a look at this as it relates to training, specifically as it relates to damage control resuscitation and damage control surgical training. I'm not going to go into too much detail of this for the purposes of time. I'll be able to share this QR, and we'll be able to share this with you, as well as some of the other previous papers directly related to pre-hospital medicine. Some of the core competencies really have to be focused on. We need to be able to have, in the disaster medicine space, true interoperability of disaster response. We need to have lexicon alignment. We need to have access to blood and plasma. We need to have clear guidance and interoperability across the NATO alliance, as well as with NATO partners such as Ukraine, for some of these other clinical details of what we can do in the pre-hospital space as relates to chest drains, antibiotics, and antimicrobial resistance and governance, as well as pain and regional blocks, and to a lesser extent, resuscitative endovascular balloon occlusion of the aorta, which don't throw any virtual tomatoes at me over the screen if you're not into REBOA, but it is a very important clinical paradigm. Lastly, I just want to kind of really focus and drive everyone to some of these centers of excellence. Now, this is just a data capture from March. Some of WADEM was supporting, as well as other partners you can see there, supported a lessons learned workshop for a large military medical exercise, Vigorous Warrior. And I encourage all of you to engage with some of these centers of excellence to really share information, learn, and use them as resources to be able to interact and be able to better our clinical practice guidelines. So just as a really rapid summary, I'm not going to read all of this. I'd like to just bring everyone into the room, scene set some of the problem sets that we have within Ukraine, and really clearly understand that within disaster health, disaster medicine, we have a lot to learn from our Ukrainian colleagues. We have a lot to support our Ukrainian colleagues so that they can do what is needed. And most importantly, we need to prepare and train with them so that we are indeed truly interoperable in order for us to reduce any outcome, morbidity and mortality from disasters, whether that be floods and fires and mudslides, all the way to large violent acts and war with Russia's current invasion of the entire country of Ukraine. And this is a significant challenge. So with that, I'd like to offer some time for some questions and debate. I'd also like to invite you to the Medicine in the Mediterranean Conference, which is putting on by the College of Remote and Offshore Medicine in Malta. I'd also like to encourage you guys to take a look at DimiMed and some THOR, which is the Trauma Hemostasis Oxygenation Research Network, which has put out a lot of information and best practice guidance. I'd also like to remember not only Pete Reed and all of the others that have fallen in this Ukraine crisis, most importantly, the healthcare providers that have been specifically targeted and are targeted to this very day by Russian invasion. So with that, I'd like to close and offer the opportunity to engage. And thank you very much for the opportunity to share my experience.
John, thank you so much. That is obviously a lot of very important information. It is a lot of information in a very short period of time. I'm sure we'll all feel a little frustration listening to these incredible presentations that we can't get more information. But given the size of the panel, we have to constrain ourselves. The good news is that all this information is accessible. So a lot of room for follow-up, and there's a lot more work to do. We did get some questions. John, I'm going to ask you one, and I'm going to ask you to please answer it very quickly because we are a little bit into our time already. Mark Turner submitted the question, are you aware of the new British ability to deploy freeze-dried blood products, which can be reconstituted using sterile water?
Yes, it's excellent. I don't actually know that exact product, to be honest, but thank you for that comment. I think it's very important to understand the minimum, better, best. And as we look at all of these different options for resuscitation in the pre-hospital space, it's great to have access to several of the different versions of plasma, freeze-dried plasma, octoplas, etc. There's a lot of versions on the market. It's also, I think, very important to remember, in the presence of trauma, in the presence of blood loss, all of these other adjuncts are great, but the best is still blood. And that's something that I think it's really challenging. Logistically, it's very difficult. With governance, it was very challenging, but we just have to remember what is absolute best for the patient. And we have to really fight and push to get that best practice. So thank you for that comment. I'll have to look up the specific version of that. I'm not sure if I know of the specific one, but thank you for that comment. And when it comes to resuscitation, we need to use all of the tools available, but remember what is absolute best practice that we need to fight for our patients. Even when it's challenging, even when it's difficult, we need to just fight for that.
Thanks, John. This is going to be a reminder for the panel as well. If you go to the Q&A section, there are other questions that were asked to you, John. While the next presenters are speaking, you can type an answer, and hopefully we can get all the questions answered during the course of the webinar. Next, I'm very excited to introduce Dr. Verónica Aquilino, who will discuss hyperrealistic disaster training through TECC and MEDKAUS courses. Verónica, the floor is yours. And Verónica, you're still on mute.
Okay, now, good afternoon from South Portugal, everyone. I feel very honored for this invitation, and I want to thank the organization and especially WADEM Europe and ECDM President, Dr. Frank van Trimpon, for all the support. I compliment my colleagues in the panel and hope to share a great moment with you all today. This presentation describes enhanced training modalities It does not endorse any product, service, or organization. And welcome to Hyperrealistic Disaster Medicine Trainings. I'll talk about TECC and MEDKAUS Disaster Medicine course. I'll share my screen now. Okay, so the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one single step. So you imagine you are in the middle of a storm and suddenly lights went off. What would you do first? What are your first concerns? Disaster medicine is a never-ending field, is a never-ending knowledge field, and is multidisciplinary. And stating Professor Ciotoni, due to the random nature of disasters, it's not possible to predict who will take the lead when a disaster strikes. So the need for basic understanding and how to act and manage a disaster or exception event is crucial. We need to empower citizens with life-saving tools, for they are the ones who will pose a significant difference in the first minutes after a disaster. So what really matters? Training, training, training. And why? Because in crisis, we don't fall to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. And as Professor Donald Donahue said, you don't need it until you do. In the last second International Disaster Response Conference in Toulouse, France, we were advised to imagine the unimaginable, and this is the challenge. So we create awareness in disaster medicine by means of hyper-realistic hands-on training scenarios on the field, with a valuable contribution from the Portuguese Army headquarters, and we include Stop the Bleed certification in it. TECC, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, and MEDKAUS courses are 24 hours non-stop hyper-realistic scenarios courses where you will be drawn out of your comfort zone and you'll be pushed far beyond the limits you thought you had. They both combine theoretical and technical knowledge with a strong focus on hands-on practice and valuable leadership skills input coming from years of experience from elite military professionals in their international missions. TECC course combines practical component with first aid outside normal first safety conditions. In the case of a mass casualty incident, in the presence of an active aggressor or active shooter, or in other exceptional situations where safety conditions initially exist and then turn out to be a hostile scenario quickly. We have the latest example from the floods in Spain, for example. We learn how to act with distraction maneuvers and safety lessons to provide lives and to protect lives. We grant professional certification by the JERT and TECC committee. MEDKAUS course prepares healthcare and civil protection professionals to respond to several types of disasters. Mass casualty events are rapidly increasing in frequency, and this training will prepare you to establish order in chaos, as well as practice life-saving maneuvers with the aim of saving more lives with the help of primary and secondary triage. It will prepare you to save more lives in safe and unsafe environments because both courses cross in the middle of those 24 hours with, for example, a hostile environment where TECC calls our MEDKAUS teams to triage victims when they placed a tourniquet, for example, in the red zone and pushed the victim into the safe zone. I leave you here some pictures. MEDKAUS Disaster Medicine Operation course is certified by the European Council for Disaster Medicine and collaboration in content from WADEM. This was our last training, it was this weekend, a 24-hour training where you see teams integrating TECC and MEDKAUS participants to get victims. This is a truly challenging and demanding scenario because you get out of your comfort zone and you face a lot of obstacles. We simulated an explosion of disco here. These are other examples from our trainings. This was in the Portuguese Medical Association. Examples of primary triage. Setting up the advanced medical post. This again was another training we did in the Portuguese Medical Association in Coimbra. And here the participants, doctors are placing tourniquets. Another MEDKAUS. And mindset is the key. So when you think you cannot go further than that, you always have this inner force within you to help others. Leadership is a really important discipline that is taught in our MEDKAUS and TECC courses. Here you see Sergeant Ajudante Nelson Cesar. She's a military parachutist and command that has more than 20 years of experience in international missions. I'll leave you other pictures and videos from our trainings. So this is what's different. The environment conditions that you get, it's what you will have to work on. No matter if it's raining or if there is a lot of mud or it's cold, you need to act, and you need to act under pressure. It's a constant challenge. I really like to give a word of true appreciation and gratitude to our special contributors, especially Dr. Frank van Trimpom, Professor Dr. Donald Donahue, from their contribution in MEDKAUS course, Nelson Cesar, Enfermeira Patrícia, Nurse Patrícia Pires, our TECC coordinator Luís Moreira, all the team from TECC and MEDKAUS. And I really like this picture because it means how teamwork can be so powerful, especially in adverse conditions, that we help each other out to get to a common goal. And here the goal is to save more lives. And comfort is our worst addiction. So let's fight that. Thank you so much for your attention.
Dr. Aquilino, thank you very much for your presentation. There are a few comments and questions in the QA session or box here. One of them asks what type of scenarios you provide training for. And I assume the question might be looking at sort of the question of all hazards or specific hazards related to, anthropogenic or technological disasters. If you could respond to that, and then I have one more question after that.
Okay. Well, in those cases, we simulated earthquake disasters. We simulated explosions, so man-made disasters as well. We didn't simulate an RBK once in those scenarios.
Okay. And David Stewart's asking, how many students do you have usually per class? How many classes do you offer per year? And then what type of students do you bring in?
Well, we welcome all healthcare professionals and civil protection mostly, and we advocate that all citizens needs to go into this kind of training to precisely to know what to do, and some life-saving maneuvers. That's why we include a Stop the Bleed in it, Stop the Bleed certification course. We welcome doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals, firefighters. We usually have lots of firefighters in our trainings because they usually are the first ones to get to the scene. So they find it really, really useful. And in terms of the frequency and the number of students, we usually get around 20 students per class. And it's all depending on the number of participants, because we have a lot of instructors. And then we manage to arrange these classes to get the adequate quality for each course. We do at least two trainings per year. So we usually get invitations from some firefighters headquarters, that wants to train their professionals, and this was made in Lisbon. The trainings that you saw in the pictures and in the videos was in collaboration from firefighter headquarters and military headquarters in Lisbon, the commands. And we can go as well to the north of Portugal or to the south of Portugal to set up these trainings in other places.
Dr. Aquilino, thank you very much for your presentation. I am now going to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Alexander Pokanevych. He is the president of the Kiev Medical University and is therefore also now an authority on adapting medical education in conflict and times of war.
Hello. I will ask Seven to assist me with my slides, if I may. Slava Ukraini and Героям Slava. It's probably the most popular greeting now in the world. And the whole civilized world is united as it never been before. And we, as Ukrainians, feel this unity and support. Truly, our Ukrainian culture and heritage is in your hands, in the hands of Europeans and Americans. It is really an honor for me to be invited as a speaker by WADEM, and special thanks to Frank, the president of European Bureau of WADEM. My speech won't be today so academic, because instead of focusing on implementing the latest evidence-based methods and technologies into educational process, we are focusing on how to survive and how to provide quality education, as well as in helping to our country resist the biggest threat of Ukraine and of the world as well, Russianism. So today we'll speak on what our community has accomplished so far, and what else we can do in the nearest future with the support of international community. Next, please. On behalf of Kyiv Medical University, I would like to thank you for everything you have done for Ukrainians. While it is almost impossible to fully be prepared for the war, and it is too early to say that we have done enough, the time is short. We need to act much faster. We need more weapons, more international expertise, humanitarian aid, and of course, justice. There is still lots of work ahead. We, as Ukrainians, will never surrender. Ukrainians are ordinary people doing extraordinary things because it is about the survival of our nation. We will surely win and will shine again, but the price of this victory will be too high. Next, please. KMU community has around 5,000 members, and approximately 900 educators are involved throughout an academic year in the educational process. We teach both in Ukrainian and English for our culturally diverse community from over 60 countries who account now of about 35% of our total contingent of students. This year we launched another socially demanded specialty within our university, which is not listed here on the slide, clinical psychology, and already had been able to admit around 120 students. Next. The war also disrupted the delicate microenvironment of medical students and junior physicians training and learning. Many medical students had to be looking for options of offline education by moving to the west part of Ukraine, moving abroad, or to Kyiv, where it is considered to be the best air defense system, but of course there is no safety place, and the safety in Ukraine and the safety cannot be guaranteed, unfortunately. For decades, Ukraine was a very popular destination among international students who were seeking high quality and affordable education, and as of January 2022, we had approximately 40,000 international students studying healthcare specialties. Unfortunately, due to the war, most of those students had to leave the country for safer places. Next. There are regions of Ukraine that are located much closer to the front lines, such as Zaporizhia, Sumy, Kharkiv, and thousands of educators, highly skilled educators, had to be forcibly moved to other regions of Ukraine, as well as they were forced to go even outside of Ukraine, abroad. Next. From the first months of war, we try to think on how to guarantee the quality and safety for our community by arranging opportunities for offline education. And the only feasible option to solve the situation for our university, we saw relocation, whether within the country or outside of Ukraine. So we chose to partially relocate our community outside of Ukraine. The majority of people thought that it would be impossible, but we still kept doing it because the destiny of each member of our community matters for us, and they appreciate this, what we do for them. Next. So we got an invitation from our Polish colleagues and started to implement our humanitarian mission in close and understandable for us Poland. Next. Instead of starting from bomb shelters, we launched this humanitarian mission in Poland. Thanks to this effort, KMU students now have the opportunity to connect with their peers from around the world, maintain their mental health, and learn from top experts from Ukraine, Poland, and other international leaders in their fields. Hundreds of Ukrainian educators have also been able to continue their work. Training is provided across all 3 faculties and all years of study. Everywhere we went, we were asking for inclusive solutions, but in reality, all the processes related to the legalization of our status as higher educational institution took too long, which caused lots of losses among the contingent of our students and educators. That means that the humanitarian support, unfortunately, for those who are in need on international level, shall be reconsidered. Next. We're continuing the networking within the healthcare facilities of Silesia region of Poland, where our relocated campus is now located. And so far, we had in-person meetings with over 50 representatives of over 50 hospitals, and they are very keen for cooperation and in supporting our mission. Next, on this slide, you can see some of the renders of the facilities that we were able to purchase in Poland, and it was done with the support of European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, and some of the renders of facilities of our campus, main campus in Kyiv. Next. The outcomes of our mission are quite impressive. In just a short period of time, we have created the capacity to employ around 200 educators who will be involved in teaching approximately 2,000 students. We are now fully operational, and our infrastructure in Poland includes educational facilities, dormitories, and sports and recreational areas, even though it is not like in our beautiful Kyiv. Next. On this slide, you can see our main campus in Kyiv. It is standing strong and unconquered as Kyiv itself. The educational process is organized with strict safety measures and follows the recommendations of the Ministry of Education. At all our facility, we ensure a stable learning environment with reliable electricity, internet, and more, using diesel generators, Starlink system, and other resources to maintain uninterrupted training. Next. Now almost every student, now almost every person in Ukraine became a volunteer, and our students and staff are not an exception. There is a big voluntary movement among them. It is self-organized and continues to expand. Next. Several times a year we host Blood Donor Day. Blood definitely saves lives. Next. It is crucial to always keep on agenda continuous training and first aid education, not only for future healthcare workers, but also for wider community. At KMU, we strive to host various events focused on teaching first aid skills. Last Sunday, we held one of these events which was officially registered in Guinness Book of Records as the largest first aid forum in Ukraine, and we aim for the world record this winter. So the forum gathered, next please, the forum gathered around 750 students from all over Ukraine, and you can see some of the photos from the event. Next. As a socially responsible institution, our university has always been actively involved in voluntary work. We have organized numerous tactical medicine training sessions for thousands of soldiers, self-defense, civilians, and of course our students, along with the free distribution of tactical first aid kits. At KMU, we were also the first among all medical universities to integrate a mandatory educational component in tactical medicine in combat conditions among residents. Given the ongoing war in Ukraine, it is essential for all medical professionals to be skilled in providing quality pre-hospital care, because the threat can be at any time, considering that occupants are always shooting missiles at hospitals, kindergartens, civilians, so we always are surrounded by danger. The course follows TECC, TECC, algorithm, protocols, and MARSH algorithm for effective care in combat situation. Next, please. As medical university, we play an important role in building a resilient and sustainable healthcare system. Considering the realities of wartime in Ukraine, we focus on developing skills for our healthcare professionals in emergency and disaster medicine. With the ongoing war, the need for many doctors trained in these areas, we must keep working to ensure we have enough well-prepared professionals ready to help in both civilian and military situations. On this slide, you can see the trainings we are currently working on to incorporate into the curriculum as mandatory components. Considering that we all live in such turbulent times, European Medical University may also consider doing the same. Next. To help healthcare workers build essential skills, we currently use 3 main training settings. Some are already up and running, like our main simulation center in Kyiv, and others in our Polish campus. However, we need more of these specialized spaces. Our main focus is now not only on working on Ukrainian sites, but also on our simulation center in Poland, which is in a large 2,000 square meters building. It will support a variety of training needs. Here, trainings cannot, the trainers who cannot travel to Ukraine, they will be able to perform in Polish center. The center will also be a space where Ukrainian military medics can share the knowledge in military medicine with their international colleagues. To fully develop these training centers, we need, of course, support with knowledge sharing, specialized equipment, and other resources. Next, please. Programs like these needed to be implemented in Ukraine, and we plan to develop them at our simulation centers. Of course, they should consider the experience and specific conditions of Ukraine. There are, without a doubt, many valuable educational and training activities that should have been implemented in Ukraine a decade ago, and some of them already are. Unfortunately, there still isn't a critical mass of qualified individuals to perform this at the needed scale. And while it's a matter of time to build these capabilities, time is something our injured do not have, nor do those on the front line who have limited opportunities to advance their skills due to critical staffing shortage. By implementing these courses, we can identify and develop talents among participants who will be essential for the future, especially given the ongoing war. Offering international certification and the potential for participants to work as instructors can serve as powerful motivators, helping us to build a dedicated and skilled medical workforce. As an example, we aim to create Center for Medical Operations Planning within our military medicine department. This would make us the first in Ukraine to establish such a center with similar models existing in the United States. We believe there are professionals in Ukraine with experience in these areas, even if they haven't yet recognized the value of their experience. Next, please. In Ukraine, the evacuation time for injured soldiers can indeed extend up to 11 hours due to difficult combat conditions, limited resources, and the complex battlefield environment. This contrasts with the NATO standard, where the goal is typically to achieve evacuation within 40 minutes. NATO's golden hour standard is intended to maximize the chances of survival by ensuring rapid medical intervention and transport. The prolonged evacuation times in Ukraine highlight the challenges faced by Ukrainian medical forces, who are often targeted by the enemy artillery and drones. This difference shows the need to adjust medical protocols and strategies to the real conditions in Ukraine. Next. And one more slide to go. Only during the 1.5 years of full-scale invasion, the number of people who became disabled as a result of amputation of limbs may be more than 50,000. Those people have lost arms or legs or both limbs. Unfortunately, this number is significantly larger now. While investing in prosthetics and rehabilitation is undoubtedly necessary, given the increasing number of cases in Ukraine, it is equally crucial to prioritize the training of our medical personnel. By advancing their skills, we can reduce the need for amputations and improve patient outcomes. A proactive approach in medical training can save lives and limbs, ultimately reducing the long-term demand for prosthetic and rehabilitation care. Next, and the last. Dear allies, with my presentation, I also want to make a point that this is not a war for territories. It is about the existence of our nation. No territorial concessions on the part of Ukraine will stop the enemy. To conclude, I'll say what we need in just one word: victory, перемога in Ukrainian. Thank you for all your attention, and thank you for keeping Ukraine active on your agenda. Only with your help, we will be able to become stronger enough to resist this monster, Russian, that lives just next to us. That means that we should have a better economy, better weapons and army, better trained personnel, and much more. Together, we're stronger. Okay, I'm done.
Dr. Pokanevych, thank you very much. I have to commend you on the adaptation that you had to undertake under the circumstances. And it's really wonderful. And you've also raised an important point, the challenge of doing it once a conflict has already begun, and the importance for other universities and other hospitals around Europe, around the rest of the world, to take that into consideration and to prepare ahead of time, which is very important. I'm going to, I'm trying to look at the questions. So one other comment I have, I apologize for the formatting. I showed the slideshow. It just points to some of the challenges we have still internationally and amongst each other. Even with simple presentations, formatting doesn't carry from one platform to the other. And it points to the challenges that we all have internationally and being able to cooperate and collaborate with what we're trying to do. So if it was difficult to read the slides, it's because of the PowerPoint to Keynote conversion. So I apologize for that. Dr. Pokanevych, I will point you to the Q&A section if you would be willing to look at some of the questions and respond to them. And I'm going to take this opportunity now that we have covered 2 presentations on training and education adaptation in conflict to move into now safety and preparedness subject matter for conflict and combat scenarios. And I would like to welcome Professor Roberto Mogavero to present the next section on safety procedures for healthcare professionals in conflict zones. Professor, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks a lot for the invitation. Glad to be here with all of you. Really exciting. The previous presentation have been great, and I'm trying to share with you my presentation. Let's see.
I will
Can you
add
see
how
it?
grateful we are for you being here to present, given that it is the middle of the night for you. So we do want to acknowledge your efforts for that as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Simon. Can you see the slides?
Yes, your slide is up.
Yeah, the second one, yeah, is working.
Yep, it is all working.
Okay, perfect. So, what about my presentation? Since that our center, the European Center for Disaster Medicine, is among the 21 center established by the Council of Europe in 1987, dealing with major risks, disasters and related issues and topics. And our center is specifically dealing with public health and disasters. One of our focus, one of our last focus was related to, yes, of course, victims assistance and activities on the ground in case of disasters, but also on understanding how to protect uh, healthcare workers, but in general, I would say first responders. We had a number of activities related to this topic and the outcomes of a specific research. I'm trying to summarize the outcome of a research we did in the past 2 years, 1 year and a half, sharing with you a number of thoughts in order on how to protect or keep safe first responders in non-permissive areas, or let's say in conflict areas. The handbook we created aims, of course, at enhance the safety of professionals, healthcare, but also first responders working in non-permissive or semi-permissive areas, equipping them with knowledge and tools in order to navigate hazardous environments, and in particular, taking into account challenges posed by landmines, unexploded ordnance, the so-called UXOs, and explosive remnants of war, the so-called ERW. One of the main point, one of the key point is understanding weapons contamination. What is the definition of weapon contamination? It is related to the presence of unexploded ordnance or landmines or hazardous remnants in post-conflict or conflict areas. And in these, we have also to think about the presence of unconventional weapons, but okay, it has been not the main focus for this research. When I'm talking about unconventional weapons, I'm referring to CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological / nuclear agents. Another main element in order to keep safe and protect operators in conflict zones is to understand the types of the sources of danger, landmines, exosa, improvised explosive devices, and also the impact on civilians and how on civilians and first responders and operators, and how those impacts can pose an obstacle to the operations. In order to let operators understand, let professional and first responders understand what are the sources of danger. Of course, a section of our handbook has been dedicated to the type of mines, anti-personnel mines designed to target individuals and to cause severe injuries or death, and the anti-vehicle and anti-tank mines intended to damage vehicles or armored tanks, but also another element we focus, of course, has been the part related to the real safety rules for responders. So first, the first part has been focusing the awareness, but after that we tried to summarize and to give responders a number of hints and number of elements on how to keep themselves safe, keep themselves and their teams. General safety rules: if you didn't drop it, don't pick it up. It's a simple rule, but it's a very effective rule. Always gather all necessary information to ensure safety, because information is something vital, especially in disasters and in emergencies, but especially in such type of areas. About rash ejection, of course, the main goal is to assist victims, to rescue individuals, to save lives. Yes, but take time to assess this situation carefully to protect you and your team. About the contaminated areas, a section has been dedicated to the elements related to walking and driving, or driving in contaminated zones, where the very basic elements are stop and stay still if unsure of your safety or your team's safety. That's something I would say that it is contrary on what a normal emergency team, EMS or fire brigade, civil protection, civil defense team is used to roll during an emergency. To run, to save lives, to give help. Yes, but in such particular environment, you have to take time in order to understand if you are safe, if the environment around you is safe, and so on. How to identify potentially dangerous areas. Example of potentially dangerous areas, but also infrastructure or whatever, areas near military position, abandoned buildings, previous combat zones, but also if you looking at potential signs of the presence of UXOs, unusual vegetation, shrapnel, discarded ordnance, is something that has to be taken into consideration before any action, before the real action of the field. Evacuation. Yeah, another important action, another important step during the operation on the field is, of course, evacuate to keep safe and to bring the who is in need to the first aid post or to the hospital or whatever. And for that, another section of our handbook has been focusing the exit of a vehicle from dangerous areas, and in this communication is something of the highest importance. Keep clear and consistent communication with the team and with the operational post, and use only designated exits as of the highest importance, because we know that those are safe exits. All the other exits, yeah, maybe exits, okay, exist, but are they safe? Who knows? Witnessing an accident, again, prioritize your safety and your team's safety. Do not rush to assist the victim. Inform the operational base immediately about what is ongoing, your need, and try to gather more information, assess the situation, and provide aid only if it is safe. Safety check is something very simple. Before delivering assistance, but visual safety check is something simple but effective. Perform a 5-meter or 25-meter visual check around the area and mark any suspicious item, reporting them for future check, or to keep informed other teams or other colleagues is important. Yeah, we also consider something not just related to shooting, but also shooting, shelling, ice strikes. Avoid high-risk areas. Stay away from military targets or strategic facilities. Of course, respond to warnings. Observe the local population behavior, how they are trying to keep themselves safe, take cover when need, and use well-constructed shelters to enhance protection, if possible, of course. Another element, handling suspicious objects. Do not touch anything if it is unknown, as it could be a potential explosive. Mark and report, use visible markers without disturbing the object, the unknown object. And in this, it is of the highest importance, the training of first responders, EMS teams, or whatever, in order to recognize and handle explosives and explosive remnants of war. Recovery of dead bodies, it is something not easy, but not because of the logistic, but because it could be many times a trap. So inspect for trap, visually inspect bodies for potentially booby traps, and for forensic activities, for further investigation, properly documented situation and report findings, yeah, for further investigation or activities right after the action and the activities on the ground. 5 C's for safety: confirm, identify the threat from a safe distance, clear, move others away from threats, notify relevant authorities of AOD's teams in case of needs, coordinate, establish a perimeter to keep people away and keep them safe, of course, and control, prevent unauthorized access to the hazardous area. Post-incident action, very important. After activities, conduct a debriefing session with the team, record the incident details for future reference, and update procedures. If something went wrong, okay, we have to modify our safety protocols based on lessons learned, lessons identified, and lessons learned. Not this, okay, training and preparation. Of course, conduct regular lineman and groups awareness session for first responders and EMS teams. Safety drill, hold routine drills to practice emergency responses, and of course, educate teams on recognizing and avoiding explosive threats. Of course, following safety guidelines is essential for healthcare professionals, but also first responders to protect themselves and their teams in conflict zones. And for that, something we have to on what we have to focus our attention is to educate healthcare workers and first responders to provide, of course, effective medical response, but not compromising their well-being. Our centers, of course, is committed to support healthcare professionals and first responders, providing trainings and resources and guidance for working in a hazardous environment. And for that, we are happy to be here with all of you. And thank you so much for the time that allowed us to share with you just a couple of thoughts. Thank you so much, Simon. Yeah, if
So,
there is any question or
Dr. Mogavero, thank you very much for sharing your presentation. Just a reminder, there is the document that you presented here, which is available as an open
online,
source
yes.
online. It's a great guide to look at. There is a question that was asked, which is a very good question. I see, John, you're engaged with the question already, which is fantastic. Dr. Mogavero, Simon Ward writes, thank you for the very important work. Do you have any thoughts on how we as a healthcare community manage the challenge of the targeting of healthcare workers now in conflict? It seems to be becoming the norm. Do you have a comment on that?
Yes, since that sadly the number of conflicts and non or semi-permissive areas are increasing more and more across the globe, and yeah, there is an increasing exposure of hacker workers and first responders from the field, and in relation to the increasing risk to for the teams and for the single for the individuals for doctors or nurses, yeah, we have to, I think, to create the right environment on how to educate our colleagues and the responders in order to keep them safe. Yes, we created and we published a handbook, but it is just a handbook. We have to share our experiences, and we had a number of a lot of colleagues that had great experiences on and they bring back experiences from the field. Please share with us, with all of us, with our community, the key points, the key elements, the criticalities, what we can do, or what it could be done to provide a more safe environment for our colleagues in such areas. The sharing of knowledge is essential, and please do it with all of us. And I think events like this are designed to create that lab, kind of lab or a right environment for knowledge sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, and the challenge is always how to identify the right platforms, the right setting or environment for this exchange of ideas. And to Dr. Quinn's point in the beginning, we unfortunately suffer from a significant loss of lessons learned, and we all need to really be cognizant of this importance of sharing and collaborating on these efforts. Now I would like to invite and welcome Professor Michael Keinest, who's going to speak about preparing German civilian hospitals for military surge capacity. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Keinest.
Hello to all of you all over the world. You should see my presentation now, and you should hear me well. Is that right?
Yes, we see the presentation and hear you. Thank you.
just for the start, I just want to give you a short insight in our clinic. We are a highly specialized clinic in trauma surgery. We do burn medicine in our burn center. We are specialized in emergency medicine and in disaster medicine. These are the only specialization we have. We do not have any internal medicine or something else. Just to give you a few numbers of our hospital, we have around 560 beds. We perform around 12,000 operations per year. We have 1,500 employees, among them 225 doctors. We perform 1,500 rescue helicopter missions per year, and we have 5 pre-hospital disaster medical specialists. But the question is, how can we get prepared for conflict, for military conflicts, and for the medical things that will occur with them? So, of course, we need first general concepts for several special events. We need severe command structures for special events. This is not done in every hospital in Germany. We need high quality education for our staff, and we need permanent training. I will get on these points shortly in the next few minutes. So, of course, we have general concepts in our hospital, for example, for mass casualty incidents. So here you can see one of the bigger incidents we had in the last 10 years. This was a big explosion in a small village, actually near to Ludwigshafen. So of course we have concepts for such events. I think most of the hospitals do have such concepts. But this is a point where I'm very interested in. We have concepts for CBRN individual cases. I will first talk about that. We have a special clinic in our hospital for decontamination with a big technical support. What you see on the left picture below is our decay system. What are we doing in this clinic? So we are prepared to do the decontamination of CBRN patients. Our equipment is stored mobile in several containers so that we can do the decontamination in this building I show you on the right top, but also in other places in the hospital, or even we can travel to other hospitals. I will come back to that later. We have a highly trained, specialized team. At the moment, we have around 45 people in that team. That team is interprofessional, consisting out of nurses and doctors, surgeons, as well as emergency doctors and anesthesiologists. We have different concepts. We can do the decontamination in our decontamination clinic that shows you the middle picture. If a patient really is in a critical state, then we have to transfer it in our resource room. There we have different concepts. You can see that on the picture. Of course, we are also thinking about concepts for CBRN mass casualties. We are still improving this concept, but you see on the right hand some pictures from our training this summer. What you can see is that we built up different decontamination lines for walking patients, of course, as well as for severely injured patients. And of course, you need a third decontamination line for the staff after work is done. The building that you see there is a side building of our clinic campus, and we tried to build up the decontamination site in front of that building. at least, and this should be the main topic today, what concepts do we have for military conflicts? Here I have to say our concepts are not finished yet. We have concepts how to distribute the patients that will come to Germany in case of NATO incident, for example, how to distribute these patients on different hospitals. At least Germany therefore is sectioned in different clusters, and we are one of the leading hospitals in one of these clusters, and there are some concepts how distribution can work. Another thing is that we have among these leading hospitals in the clusters, we have established some, we call it mobile medical intervention teams. What are these teams doing? These teams can help among the leading hospitals in the cluster. They can bring teams from one hospital to the other, not only the personnel, but also some material. You see that here all picked up in the van. And what teams do we have? We have different teams. We have surgical teams. That means really a complete team to get in a theater in another hospital, including nursing and anesthesia. We have decontamination teams. That is what I mentioned before. So our material could be picked up, including the staff, and then we can also perform decontamination with our material in several hospitals. Of course, these concepts must be already there and must be prepared before the incidents. Some other mobile teams are in planning, at least overall medical professions. Let's go to the next step. In every special event, we need clear command structures. I think that would be clear to all of you, but it is not clear in all parts of every hospital. I just speak for Germany. I don't know about other countries to that topic. So we, of course, have our regular command and situation center. We have clear structures that are taught to all of our employees. But furthermore, we have a joint command and situation center with the German army. What is done in this joint command and situation center? This is the place where the distribution of the patients happens, and where you have direct contact to the other leading hospitals and, of course, to German army. We are well in training there. This picture on the right bottom is just from last week, I think, where we did another training there. How can we perform education of our staff for really special incidents? We have different courses that we offer. I just pick out a few examples. For example, we offer a burn trauma care course. We do that together with German army. You can see that on the pictures on the right. It's an interdisciplinary approach. We also had already some Ukrainian doctors attending this course. Furthermore, we offer the CBN courses. These are the courses our decontamination team attends. What do we do there? It's all about initial treatment of decontaminated patients, especially of patients with severe injuries combined with the contamination. Our clinic, as I told you before, is also enabled to do the decontamination of radioactive contaminated patients. So we also train the handling of measurement tools for radioactivity. Another education format is a 4-day training in disaster medicine. It's all about different topics of disaster medicine. It's about triage, it's about transporting CBRN contaminated patients, it's about mass casualties. So it's really widespread topics, and a lot of workshops are included in these 4 days. Of course, our staff also attends disaster surgery courses. At the moment, we are not performing them by ourselves. We send our personnel to establish course formats there. It's good if you have your staff educated well, but to keep in training, you have to perform repetitive training, and we do that on all levels. We do training on our traditional staff work. We do training for our medical executive staff as well as for our regular medical staff, where, example again here, triage is one big point. Okay, so let's sum me up. How do we try to get prepared for special events? We try to have good concepts before the event is happening. We try to get our excellent commanding structures well educated, well trained. We offer high quality staff education on all levels, and we try to do repetitive staff training at every time, more trainings, several trainings a year, every time. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward for your questions.
Dr. Krennis, thank you very much for your presentation. I have to commend you on the quality of the system you've established. It's impressive. I want to touch on the comment you made about the preparation with the civilian-military collaboration, which is always a challenge for everyone, and I think is one of the drivers for the topic today. Of course, we still struggle a lot, even on the civilian side, to be prepared for an event like a CBRN incident with mass casualties. That is extremely complex. It is almost always by default an international incident as well, because whether it's chemical, whether it's biological, with the movement of people, whether it's radiological, even if the radiation doesn't make it over a border, the news of it does, and people become extremely concerned. The challenge is always in the collaboration with partners, and in the event of conflict or war, of course, coordination with the military. I think your presentation was very interesting, and it's good to see the efforts that have been put forth. A couple of questions. Thank you. A couple of questions have been brought up in the Q&A section. I can't cover them all, but if you could look at them, that would be wonderful. I will ask one of them. Adrian Ardelian asks, how do you manage CBRN situations in animals in cases of zoonotic biological agents? Situations like anthrax or Q fever. That's part of the CBRN question, of course. So what measures do you have to address those types of situations?
What measures we do have? This is the question.
Do you have measures how does the hospital manage situations of zoonotic biological type agents like anthrax or Q fever, things like that?
Okay. So at least we try to manage all CBN contaminations the same way if we're talking from the beginning on. So we have the same, we use the same protection clothes, and we we have different decontamination agents. Difficult with biological decontamination is always the measurement. You will get some good results 1 week later, but that doesn't help at the beginning. So you have to isolate the patient in special wards, in special isolation wards, and that is the only thing that you can do if you have severe results.
Okay, thank you. One last, just a quick question from the audience. Roland Schlesinger asks whether your institution engages in scientific research activities on this subject as well. And if so, are they non-interventional observational studies, clinical trials? What level of research do you engage in institutionally?
Our clinic does a lot of research, but not that much on this topic. I have to admit, we are starting to focus on some projects, but at the moment they focus on different decontamination agents. That is our topic at the moment.
Thank you. I will add, without being too specific, one of the big challenges for institutions and academic institutions as well is conducting research on disaster medicine, disaster preparedness. That's been a large gap. It's been identified by certain bodies, governmental organizations, and the onus has sort of been put on these institutions to do a lot of the research. But many of these institutions, universities, medical systems are challenged to find the resources necessary to conduct this very, very important disaster research. So it is something that we, amongst WADEM and some of the other institutions, have been discussing and are looking at trying to develop a consortium. So at this point, there's not that much more to present specifically, but I'm excited to say that there is work in progress, and hopefully we'll be able to share and reach out to all these colleagues in order to try to consolidate our efforts for research. I'm going to, so unfortunately, one of our speakers is currently working. He is in Ukraine and will not be able to make his presentation this evening, and that is Dr. Denis Seskovsky. I will then move to our final speaker, and I would like to inform everybody that Dr. Florian Viklas is going to be giving a very interesting presentation. For those of you who are not clinical and maybe a little bit more sensitive to graphic images, he will be showing and sharing some interesting and advanced surgical techniques. So a lot of the photos are quite graphic. So we just want to let you know in case you know, there are some sensitivities. But it is very interesting what he has been working on, and I'm excited to hear his presentation. Dr. Viklas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Dear faculty, I'm trying to start the application now. I hope everybody can see now the slide. The wrong button. Just 1 second. Can you see the slides now?
Yes, your slideshow is up. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So, thank you very much again for the introduction. I'm Florian Viklas, so I'm a trauma surgeon. So basically, my approach to the solution of problems is based on a knife. So I'm working here in Salzburg. I have nothing to declare. I worked in many NGOs around the world. So I would start with a case that we actually received from the Ministry of Internal Affairs in Austria from the Ukraine. So usually we face these complex situations, but luckily we are in the surrounding where we have most technical resources that we need. And mostly war surgeries and shell injuries and bomb injuries are usually the same. They have extensive bone defects, extensive soft tissue defects. And in war injuries, what is very particular is the high amount of contamination. Here you see the large bone defect, you see the large soft tissue defect. This has already been treated with the external fixator in the Ukraine, transferred. And on the left side, I have a picture which shows actually that even these injuries, usually they tend to heal very good, of course, with a functional loss, but nevertheless, they do heal, which is always very impressive. So our approach is actually of a level 1 trauma center. We first performed a vacuum dressing. We did an off-label external fixation. I looked up for a publication. A French study group was using this pin configuration in the clavicle and the scapula, used some bone trajectories where you can safely place the pins. We put a spacer, cement spacer in for later bone defect reconstruction. So these are the images for the first stage surgery. Then we performed the reconstruction of the soft tissues by a latissimus dorsiflap. And finally, we did the bone reconstruction, performing a fibular transfer from the same site to the humerus, and we reconstructed that bone defect and we did an osteosynthesis, and we attached the pedicle to the radialis artery of the patient. The problem of this patient was actually that her neurovascular she had absolutely no neurovascular damage to the hand and the elbow. So this was full functionally, because otherwise we would, of course, thought about an amputation, a primary amputation. And one of the major issues is also, of course, the antibiotic treatment of 5 MRGN multi-resistant germs. So if you work in low and middle income countries, you have some similar problems, but with much less resources. Here's the case. I was in the Central African Republic. This man came from 8 days through the Central African outback to the hospital in Bangui, where we worked, and had this severe open distal femoral fracture for 8 days. You see already necrotic tissue. We performed surgery immediately. We did a thorough debridement, bony and the soft tissue debridement. We put on this manual drill hand fixator and treated him. And luckily for me, I left the mission 2 days later, because it's really hard to perform any surgery in that condition with these resources you have there. So we did some researches on that topic, and what we found out was actually that this situation is not uncommon. You face in these austere environments severe injuries, but usually you don't have any resources in terms of personnel, trained personnel, instrument and implants. And usually this results, in my opinion, in an off-label treatment. So where you have to use what you have in different ways, or but I also faced lost cases, so patients which you cannot treat at all, and usually they get lost in the way of treatment, and you don't even know where they are. So our major results was that there was 3 main causes of off-label surgery. The first is, of course, which is very clear, you don't have the implants. You don't have the modern implants we have in Europe and in the Western Hemisphere. So this is mostly for closed fractures. If you have complex fractures, you don't have implants. The second one is that the conditions of the soft tissues is so severely damaged that your options are very, very limited. So we find that, of course, mostly in open fractures. And what is also very, very typical for these conditions is that usually what can happen too, you have the implant, but it is not ready at the time of surgery. The implants used to solve these problems were mainly, in my hands, were the external fixator, which is a great implant, and K-wires. So I will show you some cases I have here. You see a distal femoral fracture with articular fracture. So usually you would treat this with a plate in Europe or in the US, but you don't have these implants. So what you have to do is, here I did some percutaneous lag screws, and I used the external fixation actually as this internal fixation system and reduced the femoral block with some screws. I had screws in Sierra Leone. This was a case there. And actually, you see the nice healing after 8 weeks. Everything went fine. You leave the fixator as long as the fracture needs to heal. Another case is the typical Sierra Leonean lower leg fracture. I had in 3 months 100 tibial fractures, which is enormously amount of fractures, 1/3 open fractures. This is typical fracture. And at the time of surgery, I wanted to put an external fixator on, but the implant was not ready. It was not sterilized. It was missing. So I had just to improvise what I had. In this case, there were K-wires. I just rotted the fibula, put pins fibula to tibia, and then I tried to put some K-wires in instead of a leg screw to keep the reduction in the splint as long as for the healing. But we faced a lot of these injuries were severe craniomaxillary fractures. And so I'm a trauma surgeon. I'm not actually a craniomaxillary surgeon. So I read up some books, and so usually the treatment in Sierra Leone before I came was using their Barton bandage, which is a very bad way to treat. The patient cannot eat. They will usually end up with a fistula, and so they had really disastrous results. This external fixation on the jaw, on the mandibular, was already used. I used this in some times. But then I had a case there where the patient had a severe open skull injury. The brain was open, the septum was open. And so I started surgery, and I said, when I will cover the brain with a periostal flap from the bone, I need to protect my flap, and I will need to stabilize it. So I put some pins in the maxilla. And he had the hard palate, which was split also. So I covered it with a mucosal flap. I closed everything, and then I put this external fixator on. And these are the post-op images. And that was the first case I treated this way. So the external fixation for some points is described in the literature, but not in the treatment of these fractures in that way. I treated this case. You see 2 weeks later, the hard palate was nicely healed. And after that, another surgeon came and he developed a technique, and he did 20 some more cases, and a third surgeon came and took over the technique. And we found that the external fixator is a very versatile implant, and especially for these injuries. We went back to the lab. Here you see some cases treated by another surgeon. We published them already. And we found ourselves back in the lab. On the left side, you see this is a cadaver. We did the research where to place the pins to be mostly secure and not damage any structures. And we published that too, so we called it the external face fixator. And so when I went another case in the lab, so I tried, okay, maybe we can use this bone cement technique with K-wire also for lower leg fracture. So I had a PhD student, and we gave him some sort of this implants and told him, well, put some cement on it and test it in a machine. And in our university, he had some connections with an engineer who worked a long time for Synthes, and they developed actually a complete different thing, which is here. You see our upper, this is a usual threaded rod. Some washer and so washer here and screw nuts, and you see the cost for this is like €1 per meter of threaded rod, and this is the standard implant here, which costs €3,000 if you use it. So this is an angle stable implant they developed. So we put it on some bovine bones and tested in a testing machine, and then he did his PhD thesis. And we are right now publishing this because we think this is a very valuable tool. You can use it in many different regions. You can use it for the tibial head. You can use it for distal femur. You can use it for the proximal femur. And we found that this washer end with pins has 84% of the stability of a normal external fixation, which is really good. And even you can combine it with some K-wires, threaded K-wires. And then you have of course, another decrease in stability. We end up somehow about 44, 48% stability. So maybe you will add a plaster or a splint to that. So that is a research which was developed from this situation. And so we were thinking of putting this external fixation on many regions. We're working right now on this. I have another PhD students who will take care of this. And another fraction that I faced in these regions is that usually you have these manually drilled external fixators, but you don't have a C-arm in the operation room, or the C-arm is not working. So we are working right now also on cadavers to develop a technique to provide the best possible external fixation without using a C-arm. So we are evaluating if there is a standard technique, a protocol which we can develop, a surgical technique to provide the best technique applicate it where you don't have the resources. We also had a rat model where we tried to create and to heal these large bone defects you see here. This is where we put the periostal flap on a rat and see how nicely it healed. This is the control where you don't heal. So this is also a potential technique which can be used only by using magnified loop in these austere conditions. So ladies and gentlemen, please let me conclude. The external fixator is a very important implant for these austere regions, but at some time you will always face that it's limited. You cannot have limitless external fixation except if you use the wrong way. K-wires are very useful, but they always require a power tool and an additive external fixation, cast something. But they are very useful for the hand, for the foot, and the children. In austere regions, the surgeon needs these improvisation skills, and off-label surgery can compensate partially the lack of resources. And it can help treating pathologies otherwise left untreated. In my personal opinion on my working group, it is a motor for the surgical development because we developed the external fixator. We developed the external fixator made of a threaded rod. We are developing techniques. So for us, it's a very nice approach actually to develop surgery. Thank you very much.
Dr. Viklas, thank you very much. That was a very interesting presentation, and it's great to see how you've adapted in these austere environments and the work and research that's being done. The challenge and the question is always regarding quality assurance for the patient outcomes. But I remember in a conversation you brought up, of course, that a lot of these adaptations don't require to be aseptic because they're external, and so it does present a lot of advantages in very resource-poor environments. I'm looking at the questions submitted here. We have a question from Megan Mitchell, interested in knowing how nutrition was managed in low-resource environments after the craniomaxillary or craniomaxillofacial surgeries.
Yeah. That was the big advantage of treating them with this. They can talk and they can eat. Of course, we will let them only eat soft food, but it was not possible before. Before they had to use a straw. There was basically fluid, but now they can do with the jaw only. They can practically they have no problems. But with the CMF, actually, soft food, they can drink, they can talk, and they will not have the oral nasal fistula, which was the main advantage. This diplopia, they mostly resulted in having diplopia, which was also a big problem, and facial asymmetry. So this was actually treated with this.
Very interesting. Johan Cunningham is asking if you keep a log of the outcomes like the ICRC does for any of these.
Yeah, the ICRC has a very large data bank, a very good one. I know it. The problem is if you work for these different NGOs, mostly my approach was to actually contact the surgeons that were treating my patients after I left, but I don't have a thorough data bank. So what I use was actually reports of what I did right there, and the development we did in the lab. Of course, we have data banks of this later in the anatomy or in the research facilities.
Okay. I believe you founded a research association, No Limit Surgery.
Yes,
as well.
we funded it. Yeah, we funded that association where we try actually to bring together low and middle income countries to modern surgery, because my approach was that we can learn more from low and middle income country than they learn from us. So there's a transfer in both ways. And so it's not like you're coming to Afghanistan and showing them how to operate. This will not happen. So this was our approach. That there's some medical knowledge which is useful for both sides, on both sides.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm simultaneously trying to look at some of the questions that have been submitted here, as well as the chat. Once again, for the audience, I would like to direct you to the chat, where you can find some announcements for future conferences. If you go back to the beginning of the chat, there is also a PDF document with information about the speakers and their short bios and background information. I also encourage the speakers, please, if you would look at the Q&A tab at the bottom, we have 22 questions, and we will try to address some of them through written answers. For all attendees and speakers and everyone involved, I would like to also share that we will be gathering and consolidating all of the information shared during this webinar. We will try to create a summary to share with everyone, as well as a post survey. I would like to just share a couple of concluding points and then hand it off to our president, Frank van Trampon. And I just want to extend a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of our speakers for their expertise and dedication to advancing the field of disaster medicine. Today's discussions underscore the urgency for enhanced civilian-military interoperability and the adoption of innovative, flexible medical practices amid evolving global conflicts. The challenges of modern warfare and disaster response demand collaborative, resilient, and adaptable approaches. In that spirit, I encourage each and every one of you to continue these discussions, explore collaborations. That is in part why we organize these. We share contact information so that professionals working on similar projects can support each other's efforts and share the progress made so that we can also consolidate, aggregate, and not lose the important lessons that we are learning as each and every one of us go through these types of events as we do in our own professional regions and spheres. And together, let's build a future where medical teams are equipped to save lives and improve outcomes in the most challenging of environments, which is reworded the mission of most of our organizations. So thank you very much for your participation, for your attention. Thank you to the speakers for your time and efforts. And I really look forward to the ongoing work in this very, very vital area. Thank you. Dr. Van Trampon.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the speaker, of course, but also for all the people listening to this webinar, for all your question and answers and what you share with us. This was a great moment, and we hope to see you again on our next webinar.